Hey guys, I'm Devon Harris, original member of the Jamaican Bobsled team, three-time Winter Olympian, author, motivational speaker, philanthropist. And we are on the Dove Barron show today, man, speaking about my experiences back in Calgary as a member of the Jamaica Bobsled team, speaking about how you yourself can break the mold to become as successful as you can be, how you can be an amazing leader and help your team reach their full potential. So stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dove Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dove Barron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dove Barron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dove Barron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. I'm your host, Dove Barron, founder of Full Monty Leadership, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness so that you can reach the next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dove Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series, where today we're going to be taking an insider look at doing the impossible over and over again, and then showing others, those that you lead, how to do the same. If you're a new listener, new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. If you're a regular, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast in the world for Fortune 500 listeners. We also want to thank Inc.com for making us the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. So thank you for sharing the show with everyone you know. We couldn't have done it without you. So do us a favor. Get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show, because we need your help always in staying relevant. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you're a CEO, someone in the C-suite, a sales leader, an entrepreneur, a leader in any capacity, you know that you can have a dream, but when you have a dream, you are going to face the naysayers, those who will tell you that you're crazy. But what if your dream is a historical moment that makes the impossible something the whole world could rally around? Well, if you have a dream and you've no idea how to make it real, stay tuned, because our guest today is Devon Harris. I guarantee that if you don't know his name, when I tell you about him, it will certainly, the lights will go on. Here's why. The world should never have heard of Devon Harris. He was raised in the slums of Kingston, Jamaica. Yet he graduated from the prestigious Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst in England and served as an officer in the Jamaica Defence Force. Devon has become a highly sought-after international motivational keynote speaker and author. He is the founder and CEO of Keep On Pushing Foundation, which is a charity based out of New York, and it's focused on helping children in disadvantaged communities receive quality education. He devotes his time to visiting the troops in the Persian Gulf and around the United States. Today, he joins us from New York on his way to the Winter Olympics in South Korea. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome three-time Olympian, Devon Harris!
You're crazy, Dove. Thanks for having me, man. It's great to be here. Great to be able to share this time with you and your amazing audience.
Well, thank you, sir. Now, I kind of hinted at it, but I didn't want to give it away too much because of where we're going to go in the show. There was a movie made about you and your teammates, just so everybody gets the context here, which is 30 years ago since you competed in Calgary as the Jamaican Bobsled team. Just start us off there. I mean, first of all, what's it like to look back 30 years?
Dude, you mentioned 30 years and my back starts to hurt, you know. It's that kind of effect. No, but it's kind of hard to believe in one sense that it's been 30 years, although it feels like it was yesterday, because, you know, when you embark on something that is so audacious and so intense. It really becomes a part of not just your DNA, it just becomes a part of who you are.
Yes.
And so you can literally transport yourself back there, just like that. So it was an amazing experience. It's one of those things that they did make a movie about us, but it's really one of those stories that's kind of made in Hollywood. You mentioned, where I grew up. I grew up
John Candy wasn't really your coach?
Not quite, Not quite, but I was about to say, and I did grow up in a place called Olympic Gardens.
Did you really?
Yes, that's where we in Jamaica grow all our Olympians and water them.
Apparently got a lot of fertilizer.
Yes. No, I grew up in Olympic Gardens, a violent ghetto environment, but had dreams of competing, obviously not in the Winter Olympics, in the Summer Olympic Games. But I'm hoping now, though, to kind of jump forward 30 years from 88, that there are now young boys and girls in Jamaica who are growing up dreaming of competing in the Winter Olympic Games because of what we did.
Well, I saw a brief interview with a member of the women's bobsled team who are right now in Korea. And, and she broke up, and it was beautiful because she talked about exactly that, poor kids of color looking at the Jamaica bobsled team, women, and saying, wow, it's possible. And, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about, because in so many ways, what you guys did with that first bobsled team, that, it was so extraordinary. It was so outrageous that a bobsled team from Jamaica, a country that doesn't even have snow, would be competing. It was so, as you said, the word is audacious. What was, tell us about that. Take us back there. Tell us about that, even as an idea. Because you said you ran, you wanted to compete in the Summer Olympics. I know you did some track and field stuff as a kid. But the idea of doing a winter sport, what was that like? Did it just seem nuts?
Yeah. So the idea was actually born by two Americans who lived in Jamaica, George Fitch and William Maloney. And their story is that they were in Jamaica discussing this popular belief that we have the best women and athletes in the world, and decided that they were going to put the latter to the test. Their theory was that the way to test how good an athlete is to see how well he or she can adapt to a new sport. And so while in Jamaica, they saw this pushcart race that we had, the pushcart derby. Two crazy guys going down the side of a mountain in a cart. Only thing that's missing is the ice.
So it's bobsledding without the ice.
Yeah, exactly, And then they discovered that a big part of a bobsled race is actually the start. You need sprinters, and guess where we have lots of sprinters. And they went to the guys on the summer team. They didn't want to do it, so they came to the Army looking for athletes. And, my colonel suggested that I tried out for the team. Because obviously, I guess the soldiers were the only ones who were crazy enough or brave enough. I mean, take your pick to do it. When I myself first heard that Jamaica was about to start a team, thought it had to be the most absurd, ridiculous idea ever conceived.
Of course.
And I really did say, there's no way I'm going to do this. Really? Until, of course, the colonel told me to go do it.
Yes, he voluntold you.
I was voluntold, and but here's the interesting thing, Dov. He never expected me to make the team. There's a philosophy in the Army that says officers must always participate, and he had a bunch of enlisted men going to the team trials. So he thought he'd send his young fit officer to try out just to make up numbers. But I do not think that way. I mean, my thought process is, hey, if I'm going to go to the team trials. And by the way, this is a chance to do something I've always wanted to do, represent Jamaica at the Olympic Games. Then I'm going to go and try my darnest to make the team. Yeah. And so, the colonel wasn't counting on that little part. And so I spoiled up his plan, but it worked out fine for me.
Exactly. That's beautiful. So we were mutually introduced by Damien Loth and of Men's Essentials magazine, and I know that he's interviewed you, and I know he's done a lot of promotion around and supporting you and your charity and the team and getting a lot of support for that. But I was having a conversation with Damien, and he was telling me that he had sort of connected with you via your the Jamaica Bobsled team breaking down somewhere in Alberta in a van or something. Tell us about that.
Yes, I kind of forgot about that. Yes, so we had a team van. I took over the program right after the Sochi Games, and I've been doing everything from recruiting to planning training and buying vehicles. So we bought this old 16-passenger minivan that bought it here in New York, and they drove all across Canada to Whistler and to Calgary, and they were driving up to the track in Calgary, and the van broke down on the side of the road just as they were heading to a race. And Calgarians, being who they are, just amazing people, man.
Sure.
Canadians on a whole. But I'm partial to Calgary. Forgive me.
Sure, of course.
But they were amazing, and I'm getting a call. Sorry, just getting a call. And so people just stopped and started helping. One guy just picked them up and took them to the track, and it made news, and that's kind of how Damien and I connected.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's wonderful, because he had called me and we were having a conversation about what an inspiration the Jamaica Bobsled team was. And I'll tell you the reason why I want to bring it up is because we a lot of our listeners are Fortune 500 people. They are high level entrepreneurs, and many of them probably don't follow those kinds of sports. But Damien put a question to me, and he said to me, "Do you watch the Winter Olympics?" And I said, "Not really. I don't watch any of those kinds of things." And he said, "If I said a sport to you, just tell me the first word that comes to you." And I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Bobsled." And immediately I said, "Jamaica."
Right.
And that was the thing. So, not only did you guys do the impossible in the context that you were a Caribbean country competing in a Winter Olympics, but it was really interesting for me because I think you've been a voice or been the face of, and you've brought a lot of attention to the Winter Olympics because of that contrast. Wouldn't you agree?
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, they're just on so many different levels. There were only a handful of black athletes in the Winter Olympics when we started back in '88. There were a bunch of guys on the U.S. and the Canadian bobsled team.
Yes.
And then there was Debbie Thomas, the American figure skater. And then there was our team. That was it. We were the only and the first all-black team. And now in the Winter Olympics, you look, there are black athletes representing all 5 continents across a variety of sports, to include now you have the Nigerian bobsled team and a Ghanaian skeleton rider. So it's amazing. So we brought some color, no pun intended, to the Olympics.
But I think my point is that you broke a mold, and I think that this is what's really important for us to get as leaders, is that you broke a mold, and everything inside of us tells us we've got to follow the rules. I was just having this conversation with a very good friend of mine who was also a leader who I work with, and we were talking about how there is a certain way to do certain things, and only certain people can do those certain things, and they have to do those certain things in a certain way. So, and we were discussing this, that both of us are frustrated with that because it's not our way. It's not our natural way, and we don't feel like we can serve at our best that way. And then we're saying, we both got to, screw it. Let's just throw caution to the wind and do it anyway. And if we fall on our asses, well, we'll always survive because that's what we've done.
Exactly.
And it's one of the things I loved about what the Jamaica Bobsled team was, I call it a Rocky story, and I'll tell you why. You saw the movie Rocky, I'm sure, as did we all. Everybody remembers that movie. Everybody loved that movie. But Rocky didn't win. And everybody forgets that. If you ask people, did Rocky win? People will say yes. No, he didn't. He lost.
Right. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Did the
And
Jamaica
people think
Bobsled
that
win? No.
we crashed. Yeah, but I can't tell you how many times people have asked me, about the medal I won. I'm like, well, we actually didn't win. But you know what it is people see themselves in Rocky. People see themselves in us.
Exactly.
People see those dreams that they have always harbored, that they have always been afraid to go after.
Yes.
Because they were afraid to fall. They were afraid to crash on their heads. And then they see these four guys from Jamaica who have no business being in the Winter Olympics, just going for it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what entrepreneurs do. and sometimes they make it across the finish line and it's all good. But, before they get to that stage, they are going to crash.
Yeah, and that's what I just said. I just loved that about you guys is the fact, and again, it would have been easy to say, well, we didn't win anything and we crashed and, we probably should not bother. But you guys didn't. And as you said, you've actually added color because, as you said, Guyana and Nigeria and countries that would never have competed in those sports have also come forward. So in many ways, you've beaten a path that was not there, which is wonderful. Tell us about your involvement with, because, you were on the original team. Tell us about your involvement with the team today.
Absolutely. So, yeah, competed on the original team. I've actually competed in 3 Olympics. So I was a pusher on that 88 team, and then I became a driver because the driver is a leader on the team. I drove in 1992 and 98 in Nagano. And then I was loosely attached, loosely involved for many years. And in 2014, I basically just took over the entire program, just started to revamp in a way. And the results of that has shown with us having a women's team and a skeleton rider. Now, to be sure, Jasmine, who was racing for us, and Carrie, Jasmine in particular was being recruited many years prior. But I brought in, several women in 2014, 2015 to start the process of, creating a women's team and, of course, bringing in the skeleton rider as well. So, yeah, I've been involved in every single aspect of developing the program since the Sochi Olympics to this point.
Yeah, and listening to those ladies who are competing for Jamaica, it's very inspiring because their message is certainly not just about women and women of color, but about diversity and the importance of diversity. I feel like in many ways, this is another level of let's do the impossible. And somebody had even stated online that maybe Disney should consider a second version of Cool Runnings, which is now the women's team.
We have been saying that for many years, for 30 years now, but I think now is an awesome time, actually. It's another amazing story, another amazing, unlikely story with some powerful lessons as well, because you're absolutely right. It's not just, it speaks to diversity. And when you march in an Olympic opening ceremony, when you enter the Olympic Village, you see this. You see diversity that really comes to creates a togetherness, creates a oneness. You see all these attributes that speaks to the fact that we are really one, and there are no real differences except these, almost false perceived differences that society project on us. Mm-hmm. But whether you're a Ghanaian bobsledder or a Swedish curler, or we all share the same hopes and aspirations. Yeah. And that's what exists in the real world as well.
Yeah. Now, coming back to, I've often said this even with the I work with athletes too, that you can have all the skills in the world, but without the mindset, it's dead in the water. And you can have the mindset and you can train the skills. But, going back into your history, I talked about in the introduction that you were born in a ghetto environment, a violent ghetto environment in Jamaica. I'm sure there were people around you. I grew up in a ghetto too, so I understand. I'm sure there were people around you who went down another path, a much darker path, a much more destructive path. What do you think because there's usually a catalyst of some kind, at least. What do you think was the catalyst for you to not go down that path? What do you think it was that sort of just gave you that little tweak, a little bit, that you went on a different direction?
Whenever I'm asked this question, Dov, I always blame my grandmother. It's her fault, man.
It's her fault. I got my shit together. I'm sorry, but I gotta own it.
Yeah. And the worst part about that story is that she never lived long enough to see any of it unfolded, unfortunately. But so when I was really young, I lived with her, and I just remember her. She was an amazing storyteller, and one of the stories that she told was about soldiers and how they could perform these amazing feats and not get hurt. They could jump in these deep gullies and not break their legs, and it sounded impossible. But it captured my little 5-year-old mind, and I didn't know if I could do it, but I wanted to do it, and that was the thing that inspired me to join the army and to become a soldier. But more importantly, on a broader level, it inspired me to want to do things that everybody else thought was difficult or impossible. And I didn't know if I could do it. As a ghetto kid, I didn't know if I could get into the Army Officer Corps, but I wanted to try. I didn't know if I could make it at Sandhurst, but I wanted to try. I didn't know if I could, in fact, become a bobsledder, but I wanted to try. And so, yeah, it's her fault.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
However,
but as I remember in my teenage years, living in the hood and just seeing my friends, my peers, I was also succumb, just kind of give in to the influences of their environment.
Of course.
To me, it just felt so burdensome. It was not something I could take on. So, it was difficult, obviously, pushing beyond that environment, but it was so worth it.
Yeah, but that is my point here, is that, I certainly didn't go the path of my environment, but I can clearly remember the pressure to toe the line and fit in with my tribe, of people who were from where I was from, who were into drugs and violence and drinking and and crime. That pressure, even though it was never felt like it was part of who I was, I certainly dabbled. I'm not saying I was clean, but I dabbled. But it was never. But I can remember
it
the
never
pressure.
Sat well with you, right?
Never sat well with me, but I can remember the pressure. I can remember how much pressure there was to, and even when I was a little older and I was working, the pressure to still stay in the environment. So this is the other thing, because now I know you speak internationally. We're going to get to that in a moment. You speak internationally. You're an author. You travel. That pull to be owned by your own environment. For me, and I'm not saying about this to you, but for me, there was a lot of talk at me about, oh, you're getting away from your roots. You've forgotten who you are. You've forgotten where you came from. And like I was abandoning it. And that was not, none of that was positive. That was all a hook to keep you back and just get a good job and join a union or something, and then drink in the pub. So what was that like for you? Did you have that pull to be stuck?
Absolutely. And I remember, it was that summer between 7th and 8th grade. I was 13 years old. I woke up one morning and all the boys that kind of lived on my street, I just said, here, I'm translating now because this was said in Patois. Right. I just said, hey, we're not friends anymore.
Right.
That's it. I'm just like, we're not friends anymore, because I realized that hanging out with them and listening to them and participating in those conversations, as I said earlier, was burdensome. And I had to remove myself from that. And I was fortunate because I had school, I had sports, and so I just invested myself into my running. I started dreaming about becoming an Olympic athlete. It's kind of this was 1979-ish and 79, 80, yep, and the Moscow Olympics were coming around. And they had these ABC Wild Roller Sports had did the series on Road to Moscow where they showcase athletes from all over the world.
Yes.
And, when you think of an Olympic athlete, you think, oh man, pedestal, right? This amazing human being. But what I saw in those stories were average and ordinary people with extraordinary dreams and an extraordinary desire to go pursue those dreams. And that caught me. So you add, the stories that my grandmother told me to these stories, I'm like, wow, I can do something differently. And so, just like you get that pushback. People think or claim that you behave as if you're better than them. No, I just don't want what you have. I don't want what you're pursuing. But you live to see how you pursue. You basically threw caution to the wind, felt uncomfortable many, many times, but made yourself do it, and how it has paid off. And you go back to the old neighborhood. We spoke about my foundation. I didn't forget where I came from. I'm right back there, but I'm in such a better place to make a difference versus hanging out with them and accepting their leaky logic and fallacious philosophy.
Leaky logic indeed. I get that.
Yeah.
So let's do the journey here. So you're born in this ghetto environment. You've got this wonderful grandmother who tells you stories of impossibility that are military focused. You have a dream of wanting to be an Olympian. Was it a natural path to go into the military?
So first of all, it's voluntary, and so I wanted to do it. I would say natural in the sense that after high school you can apply, but it's rigorous. So especially to apply as an officer, you have to go through this rigorous 3-day selection process. And for me personally, when I turned up, there were 33 of us. And before we even got into the test proper, we were whittled down to 9.
Wow.
And that's like, whew, look, that's an ambush. Talk about, it was such a shock. It was such a shocker. And it ended up with me being the top pick of only 3.
Wow.
So it's
so
not,
what
it's
was
not,
it made you
don't
stand
just
out?
walk it. I don't know what it is, but I was just hungry, man. I didn't want to go back to Olympic Gardens. This was my dream, and that's the thing. It's you grow up, spend all your life dreaming about this thing, wanting to be in the army, and now dream and reality collide. Mm-hmm. And there comes a time now when, dude, there's no more time for dreaming. It's time to do.
Yes,
it's time to do, and I just went and I just did my darnest, man, because there was just no way I was going to go back to the old neighborhood, to those same guys I told were no longer friends, to go hang out with them, wasn't going to happen.
So you went to Sandhurst, which for our American listeners, viewers don't probably realize, it was a very prestigious military school in the UK.
It is the most prestigious military.
What's the American one? The
West Point. There's a West Point equivalent.
It's England's West Point. So it's very prestigious. You go to there, you graduate from there. You then went back to Jamaica and served. Is that correct? That's correct. Yep. Mm-hmm. And how long did you serve in Jamaica before you were voluntold into the bobsled team?
I was an officer for roughly a year before I was voluntold. So
that was quick. Wow.
Yeah. It was. If you think about my life, right? So and I speak about this. How less than a year after high school, I'm at Sandhurst. I'm going from the hood to Sandhurst, and less than 3.5 years after high school, I'm at the Winter Olympic Games.
Wow. That is a super fast journey. You can't even make that stuff up. But it was really, really quick. But again, it's kind of like us, Dove. If we didn't make that decision earlier on, when I was 13 to go, hey, listen, we're not friends anymore, I wouldn't have been in a place to take advantage of those opportunities. No. So with these things, it's very often, and I've interviewed people on this before, and I'm really interested to hear from you. with these things is often that sense of what we call the 15 minutes of fame. You've got the Winter Olympics, you're the first Jamaican team in a bobsled, there's a big hoopla around it, and then the Olympics are over. And it's very easy to fade into the background and disappear. I don't know what happened to the rest of your teammates. Clearly something else happened for you. But tell us about there's that moment at the peak where all the attention is on you, the spotlights are on you, and then suddenly the lights go off and everybody goes home. What was that like?
And I was fine with that. We're here talking about my bobsled experience, and it's such a huge and important part of my life, but it doesn't really define who I am.
No, that's why I want to get to this.
And what's interesting, and I say this all the time, and it is so true, I literally took my bobsled uniform off, put my army uniform back on, and went to work. Huh. That was it. I went from Devon Harris, the Olympian, to Lieutenant Harris. That was it. That was it. Because in a way, being on the bobsled team was an extension of my military service. It was an extension of my service to country. That's soldiers kind of think that way.
Right.
So I never lived this high celebrity life, as it were, and I never projected that among my army peers as well, because I'm just not made up that way. I don't believe in being arrogant to the point where, I think there's a certain level of arrogance that all of us who strive to achieve has.
Sure.
But there's a difference between that and being asshole, pardon my French.
French is fully acceptable here.
Absolument. But my personal belief is that, if you want to be a leader, if you want to be someone who is truly inspiring people and influencing them in the most positive way possible, then you can't be an asshole.
No.
Because nobody wants it. I mean, people will do what you say only because you have the title. But they're not going to grow. They're not going to go out of their way to help you solve some of the issues that are preventing you from reaching your goals.
So you by virtue, again, by the catalyst of your grandmother, had big dreams. You went on to become a leader. You like you said, you broke through to be in the top 3, getting into Sandhurst. You graduated Sandhurst, which definitely made you a leader again. You became on the Olympic team, which made you a leader again. Then you go back into the military, and after that, walk us through what happened after that, because you've gone on to do some amazing things that it's easy for people to not notice.
So I actually competed in 2 Olympic Games before I retired from the Jamaica Defence Force in December '92. So Calgary and Albertville, France. And then, I wanted more, and that's the thing. If there's one thing that Jamaica Bobsled did, was that it opened my eyes to all that was outside of my environment in Olympic Gardens and what I saw being an army officer and being at Sandhurst. And I started doing these promotional tours as a member of the team, and I started seeing that, whoa, there's all that. That's out there. I'm like, whoa, I want some of that. And so I moved to the U.S. Right after at the end of my 8 years in the Army. I didn't resign. And you'd think that I would be at the pedestal, but I went all the way to the bottom, and I spent my first 18 months working in a kitchen as a cook. I went from Captain Harris to Cook Harris. And just trying to find my way in America, to be honest. And so that took me the first 18 months, and I worked another 18 months in retail. And then I went back to bobsledding. Because I felt I had unfinished business. I couldn't shake this thing, really. It was just like, oh my God, I couldn't get it out of my system. And in pursuing that, discovered motivational speaking.
So talk to us about that. How did that come about? Because I've been a speaker for 34 years, and I know I didn't start out with a goal of being a speaker. that was never part of my...
Exactly.
So talk to us about how you... I think there are some people now who actually set about that as a career, but I doubt that was yours, and I know it wasn't mine. So talk to us about how you ended up in that.
So I thought I was going to be working in hospitality management, and I was going to be managing a hotel somewhere. And then I met this guy who was an agent for a couple of reggae artists in Jamaica. And he talked a really good game, and I'd never had an agent before, and he was interested in being my agent. So that was kind of exciting.
Sure.
And this is 1996, and I'd never heard of anything called motivational speaking. Never, not once.
They don't have a lot of those in Jamaica?
Maybe now, but not then. So he mentioned it to me, and it sounded good. I'm like, I like that. But after the Olympics, because you kind of have to keep the focus.
Sure.
So it turned out, Dov, that he did absolutely nothing to help me to go to the Olympics, but he had planted the seed in my mind.
Right.
About being a motivational speaker. So now I'm in Calgary, and that's what I'm focusing on the Olympics, but beyond the Olympics is becoming a motivational speaker. And I was just on my bookshelf recently, and I saw a book, my first book on motivational speaking, I found in a supermarket in Calgary. We went there to buy food. And I think it was entitled, Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is, or Your Mouth Where Your Money Is, whatever. And but that was it. I just started saying to people, hey, after the Olympics, I'm going to be a motivational speaker. And after the Olympics, I started speaking for free at schools and Rotary clubs and wherever people would listen to me and not throw up, and or boo.
Meanwhile, cooking in the kitchens.
Well, so I kind of left the kitchen behind to go pursue. So I dropped everything, man, to go pursue bobsledding. I don't even know how I did that, but
I was going to say, how did you survive?
That's the life of the entrepreneur. That's the life of the leader. Yeah. I realize now. It's just that when you have an idea and it gets a hold of you, there's nothing you can do but go after it.
Right.
Whether it's the idea to go to the Olympic Games or start your own business. And so you find a way to survive. We were in Evanston, Wyoming, training 8 hours a day, coaching ourselves and delivering pizzas at night. You just, I describe it as putting one foot in front of the other. You just find a way.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you've gone on to write books?
So I've written 2 books. My first book, Yes, I Can, the story of the Jamaica Bobsled team, is a children's book that's written to verse. And, I spend a lot of time with kids. They're my passion and are one-off. And in speaking to them, I realized that and I guess I was that way as well, but when I was their age, children generally have a general lack of confidence. And I wanted to find a way to help them tell them a cool story in a way that would resonate with them. And I thought about our story and found a way to write it to verse. So Yes, I Can, the story of the Jamaica Bobsled team. And then I wrote a semi-autobiographical motivational book, Keep on Pushing, Hot Lessons from Cool Runnings. So we start back with life in Olympic Gardens and the rise out of that to bobsledding and the lessons that one can extrapolate from my experiences and hopefully apply to their lives to live their best life.
Wonderful. Now you've gone on to actually create a foundation by that name. It's right on your shirt there. So,
yes, indeed.
So tell us a little bit, how the foundation got formed and what it's about.
Yes. So if you go back to when I'm 19 years old and I'm just leaving high school, and again, dreams and reality collide. It's time to put up. And there was this real possibility that I might not succeed. I mean, I was one of 33. I could have been one of the other guys, right? And what I remember is a sense of despair, feeling this sense of despair. But it worked out for me fine. So back in 2006, I visited my old elementary school, and I'm having this conversation with my principal. And I'm like, hey, what's the biggest issue you're having here? And it was kids were coming to school hungry. And being from that environment, all of us know that if you're hungry, you can't learn. If you can't learn, you don't get educated. You don't get educated, you don't stand a chance, right? You can't be a productive citizen in the world. And being from that environment itself, I knew exactly what that meant.
Yes.
Hence the birth of the Keep On Pushing Foundation. Because I don't know that I can necessarily alleviate the despair that those kids who are dreaming big dreams will have, just in case it doesn't work out. But I know I can help in preparing them in some way, shape, or form. And so the breakfast program, a school supplies program, we're right now building a medical center on the school grounds. We're halfway there. We still need maybe another $10,000 or so to finish it, furnish it. And we're going to establish a rooftop garden as well. So the kids will, get their hands dirty, planting their own food that they can eat.
That's fabulous. And you've now even got a theme song. Run the track, Jamaica. Run the track, run the track, run the track. It's bobsled time. You believe in the black and the yellow and the green and the red drink cool.
Well, I didn't sing that, right?
No, I got that, but it's still part of the foundation, though, right? Well, you can
that
mouth
would have been disastrous, man. Hey, I could mime it.
Exactly. You and I will mime it together, because that would be far better than either of us singing it.
Right, there you go. But
I can mime with a Jamaican accent. I should note.
No, that's impressive. That's really impressive.
I can fluently mime with a Jamaican accent.
I have to tell you, I was on my primary school choir, and I mimed the hell out of that song, man. I was not going to be sent back to class, and I mimed like there was no tomorrow. But yeah, so Run the Track is Bobsled Time is a really cool, lively, upbeat party song, man, that I think it epitomizes the Jamaican spirit. It epitomizes the Jamaican bobsled spirit, where we come to compete. I mean, people see us as Jamaicans and think that we're cool and laid back and fun-loving, and we're all of that.
Sure.
But when it's time to compete, hey, you see us in the Summer Olympics. You know what time it is. So I think the song epitomizes certainly the party, the fun side of what we bring to the Olympics, not just the color in terms of melanin, but in terms of vibe as well and energy. And so I want to encourage everyone to. It's available on all of the music streaming and downloading services, and there's a really cool video.
Yes.
As well, the bobsled slide, man, a new dance, and so go check it out on YouTube and learn a couple of moves, record yourself, and send it to us or post it. We want to see what you do, just having fun.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, sort of in that vein, Jamaica has already won. People don't know. It's all over the internet. Jamaica have already won, and you say, what have they won? Well, they won the entrance exam, meaning that the internet has gone crazy saying that Jamaica won for their entrance into the Olympic Stadium and their funky vibe. They apparently took it away. They even beat the, was it Tongans, who a guy came out with no shirt on?
With no shirt, yeah.
And still the Jamaicans were the ones. So that's pretty cool, because I know a lot of women were a little fluffy over the guy who came in oiled up.
yeah. He came with all that oil, but we brought the juice.
He brought the energy.
We brought the juice. Yeah, man, we brought the energy, and that's what the song, really relates as well to anyone who wants to listen to it and rock to it.
We've talked to you. We've sort of gone through this journey of your life and certainly the ups and downs. But it is my experience that leaders, whatever they are, like I said, I work with athletes, I work with actors, I work with CEOs, I work with entrepreneurs, I work with just this vast range of individuals, artists, etc. And there are a couple of things I notice. One is the most successful people in the world are obsessed. There's something they're obsessed with that often takes different forms, but there's an obsession. We think of obsession often in the negative sense, but it is actually this fuel that drives us. What has Devon been obsessed with? What is it that still is that fuel for you?
Yeah, so Norman Vincent Peale speaks about the magnificent obsession, and you're absolutely right. In order to become successful, you have to be obsessed about something. Younger, it was obsessed about getting out of the ghettos and being an army officer and so on. And now for me, my motto, keep on pushing. So I describe it a certain way. I describe it as being curious. I'm really curious about all the things I could possibly accomplish if I just launch, if I just try, if I just go for it, if I just go for broke, right? I'm really curious, man, because I've come to believe, I come to know that we all have this unlimited potential, this amazing potential. And what is it that you could possibly accomplish if you just go for it? So whatever I choose to do, whether it's my speaking or supporting the team or my foundation, I really put they represent my magnificent obsession that's being fed by this insatiable curiosity that I have to be the best that I can be and to make those things become the best that they can possibly become.
When you have felt beaten down, and anybody I know who's ever had any level of successes, as I often say, we are rocky. We have been knocked to the canvas many times. What is it, not that just gets you up, but what is it? What is the knowing? What is the something inside of you that you tap into that says, I'm bigger than this?
It's a couple of things, and it's interesting that you use Rocky, because I often use the boxing analogy as well. I always say, you've never seen a guy won a boxing match without getting punched. And he gets punched, and he doesn't ignore the punch. He absorbs the punch, and then he comes out swinging.
Yeah.
So I recognize that along this journey, I am going to get punched, and it is going to sting. It's going to hurt like hell. But then I can't dwell on that. I kind of have to get that out of my mind real quickly and get back. And one of the things that the strategy that I use, I suppose, is this idea that I am striving for that goal because I don't like where I am right now. Is like, I'm trying to cross a street. Another analogy, I use analogies a lot. I'm trying to cross a street, and between my side of the street and the next side are a whole bunch of potholes with puddles and whatnot, and traffic going crazy in two different directions. But what I want is on the other side of the street. Where I am is just not suitable for me. And it's either I'm going to risk falling in a pothole and maybe getting run over by a car to get to where I need to go, this better side, or I'm going to stay here and settle. What I know is that if I stay, I'm going to be miserable. So I have to do everything that I can to get to the other side of the street. So I'm always reminded in a very unfortunate way when I go back to my old neighborhood and I see many of the guys I grew up with. They never left my side of the street.
No.
And it's not even living, it's an existence. I can't imagine existing like that all these years.
Yeah, I understand. Like I said, I was under all the pressure too, and I at 14 said to my mates, "I'm done. I'm out of here." And they're like, "What are you talking about? I'm leaving." And they didn't matter. And then by the time I was 16, in the UK you can legally drink at 18, so at 16, of course, I was in the pub.
Right.
And I would sit around with my mates in the pub, and I'd say, "I'm leaving this place," and they would all like, "Yeah, it sucks," and they would all agree with me, but it sucks. And then at 21. I said, "I'm leaving on a plane next week," and they're like, "You can't go. What are you talking about? It's good here. You've got Boddington's Bitty. You've got Manchester United. You've got Manchester City. You've got your family." And I was gone. And I didn't go back and visit for 4 years. And when I went back in 4 years, you know where I went? I went to that same pub, to that same table, and those same guys were sitting there. And God help the poor guys, because they're probably still sitting in that same pub today if they're not dead.
Right. So it is bittersweet to go back to the old neighborhood, because in one sense, it's awesome to run into people that you've grown up with.
Yeah.
But it's sad, because you realize that they have not grown. They have not left. They have existed in that place that you have resisted and walked away from and grown, all these years. They're still in the same split, literally and figuratively, still in the same spot.
It's sad and unfortunate, but it is true. We are very good at being comfortable, even in misery. Just
yes.
If there was one lesson that you could have our leaders who are watching and listening get, what would that lesson be that you would want them to go away and put into action? So this is important. It has to be a practicality they can put into action, preferably in the next 24 hours, but certainly within the next working week. What would be your one direction, Devon, that you would say to them, go do this?
The answer that comes to me, and this is how I kind of feel about leadership, is that simply just go treat people as you'd want to be treated. And that means in every respect. And so it's treating them, being courteous, being polite, being respectful of them, but at the same time, for being tough, being demanding of them, requiring excellence of them. I'm sure if you, as an individual, want to become successful, and you had a mentor, you had somebody who said, hey, do what you need to do to get me to where I need to be. You'd want that person to be demanding. You'd want them to require excellence of you. I think that's something that we can all implement. So you can be demanding while at the same time being respectful. You can treat people as whole persons, and not instruments of production.
Great. Very well said. Very well said. It's been wonderful having you here. I would love for you to tell our listeners and our viewers, A, where they can find out about you, B, where they can get their hands on that song and support your foundation, and where they can find out more about the team and all those kinds of things. If you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely.
Share those
man, I appreciate that. So it's really easy. DevonHarris.com, www.devonharris.com. I couldn't have planned it any better. And so there you can find out about my speaking, you can find my books, you can find this amazing shirt and others. JamaicaBobsled.com, you can find out about the team. The song that's kind of kicking up on the airwaves now it's Bobsled Time. So if you go to bobsledtime.com, you can get a copy of the song definitely there. If you search it out on YouTube, you'll find the video that you can learn the bobsled slide.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Listen, man, it has been a true pleasure and an honor having you here with us. We really appreciate it. I want to thank you for all that you've shared. Thank you for the difference that you're making. Thank you for keeping people's dreams alive and seeing that the impossible just takes a little more work. It's not impossible.
That's all it does. Yeah, absolutely. No, Dov, it's been great, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's really awesome hanging out with you. You're kind of a cool guy.
Thank you.
Your Jamaican accent in the mime is pretty impressive too.
Well, off air, I'll do my Jamaican accent because I grew up with lots of Jamaicans. But stay with us till the very end, and we're just going to say goodbye to everybody else because I want to thank you, dear listener, dear viewer, for tuning in. And I encourage you, of course, to get over to devonharris.com, bobsledteam.com, all those places that Devon has shared with you. Of course, we'll put them in the show notes so you can go there. Go check them out, find out more. And really, as always, I say to you, please don't just listen, but actually pay attention, take some notes, and get some action. And remember that the research consistently shows that one of the biggest challenges facing some of the most successful companies is somewhat counterintuitive in that these fast-growing companies often hit a point where they realize they're spending an absolute fortune training and developing talent, only to have them leaving them at an alarming rate. If you're sick of training and investing and developing your talent, only have them leave you before you get your ROI, then come talk to us at Full Monty leadership.com, where we provide you the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside your organization by tapping into your purpose. FullMontyLeadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. Also, remember to get yourself over to the Matrix, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com, and get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool. It's valued at $197. It's absolutely free to you as a viewer and a listener. Matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. And also, of course, we need you to go over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Again, thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Dov Barron, founder of Full Monty Leadership, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness so that you can reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership. Till next time, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about how the impossible is just over the next hill. Don't let them beat you down. You can get there. And if you're not sure, just look at Devon Harris, who'll prove it to you. Till next time, Dov Barron, I'm out.